Michael didn't wake up afraid. That's the thing. He woke up tired. His phone was already buzzing before his eyes were fully open. One notification, then another, then three more. News alerts, messages. Someone had posted something dramatic overnight. He didn't even open them yet, but his chest felt tight anyway. Lately, that was how morning started. Not with panic, with a quiet sense that something was wrong. He brushed his teeth while the TV played in the background. Another headline, another expert, another warning. He wasn't sure what the warning was about anymore. War, economy, politics, something about the future. Everything sounded urgent. Everything sounded bad. Michael paused for a moment and caught his reflection in the mirror. He looked normal. Nothing was actually happening in his house. The lights were on. The water worked. The day was beginning like any other day. But inside, it felt like standing on unstable ground. On his way to work, he noticed how quiet the road was. People driving, stopping at red lights, going about their business. And that confused him, because if the world was really about to end, why did everything still look the same? At a red light, Michael finally opened his phone. Big words, strong opinions, predictions stacked on top of predictions. Some people were certain something terrible was coming. Others were angry at anyone who disagreed. Everyone sounded convinced. He scrolled, then scrolled again. And that familiar thought crept in. What if they're right? Not in a dramatic way, just quietly. What if all this tension means something big is about to happen? What if this is a moment people look back on and say, we should have seen it coming? By the time he got to work, Michael felt heavier than when he left the house. Nothing bad had happened, but everything felt bad. At lunch, he tried to focus on his food, but his mind kept drifting back to the same question. Is the world actually falling apart, or am I just overloaded? He remembered being younger. The world had problems then too, real ones, but it hadn't felt like this. Back then, bad news came at certain times, in certain places. Now it followed him everywhere, in his pocket, on his screen, in conversations. There was no off switch. That evening, Michael sat on his couch without turning anything on. No TV, no phone, just quiet. At first, the silence felt uncomfortable, almost suspicious. But after a few minutes, something unexpected happened. His breathing slowed. Nothing terrible happened in the silence. The world didn't end. No alarms went off. He realized something then, not as an answer, but as a possibility. Maybe fear doesn't always come from what's happening. Maybe it comes from never stepping away from what's being said. Michael didn't suddenly feel calm, but he noticed that the sense of doom he had carried all day wasn't as loud anymore. The questions were still there. The uncertainty hadn't disappeared. But for the first time that day, it felt manageable. He picked up his phone again, not to scroll, just to check the time. Then he put it down and sat there a little longer. This is Michael's Diaries.